he went further south and into the woods. We took a right turn into a cul-de-sac, and I didn't realize he was looking for a place to kill me. My name is Mary McDermott, and I was born and raised just north of New York City, but we always had a little tiny summer house near the Jersey Shore, so I learned how to body surf and became one of the first female ocean lifeguards on the Jersey Shore. So all of my friends were guys in the ocean, and that's how I ended up on Christmas Eve, 1998, with a near-death experience. That morning, my mother didn't want me in the house. Now we know the term narcissist, but she was a narcissist as well as my older brother and my older sister. My father worked in New York City. He was never home, and when he was home, he drank. So I didn't have any family support, and she didn't want me in the house on Christmas Eve day. So she said, just get out and come back at 5 o'clock for church. So I had nowhere to go. Everybody was with their families, baking cookies, doing things. And I went over to my friend's house, who was a surfer and a lifeguard, and he was an alcoholic and unsupportive and unreliable, just like everything I was used to in my family life. And he wasn't home. But the big house was for surfers and body surfers and boogie boarders. There was a lot of equipment there, a lot of people coming in and out, faces I knew from years down the shore, and there was one face I didn't know. And I had asked him about this guy. I said, who is this guy, Tom? He's been kind of hanging around our group. I don't know who he is. Where did he come from? And John said, he used to be a part of our group, but he moved away, and now he's back, and he's a good guy. So I said, okay. I just want to know, because we are all in the water together. We keep eyes out for each other. I just didn't know who he was. So Christmas Eve day, I went over to John's house, and who was there but Tom? And there was nothing in the refrigerator. The fireplace didn't work. It was a typical surfer house. And I said, I have to stay out of my house until 5 o'clock. I said, I'm going to take a drive down to South Jersey. You know, if you want to go, you can go. If not, I'm going anyway. And he said, yeah, I'll go. So I said, okay, fine. So beautiful scenery all the way down, ice cold, gray skies, deserted, just a straight drive all the way down south. We got down there around 4 o'clock, and the stores were closed. We stepped out a little bit to stretch our legs, looked in some art shops and some surf stores. We were just trying to get a good breath of fresh air before we turned around and came home, when I realized I needed gas. And the problem with that was it was Christmas Eve day, and a lot of the gas stations were closed. So I did happen to find one that was open, and I pulled in just as the guy was turning out the light. And I said to the man, I said, I'm so sorry. I said, can we just here's $10. I said, I just need gas to get home. I said, we'll be quick. And right after that, you can leave and shut up the shop, which is exactly what happened. I got the $10 worth of gas. I ran to the ladies' room. But when I came back, Tom was in the driver's seat. And I said to him, Tom, you can't drive, because he told me he didn't have a license. And he had also finished in that short amount of time a half a bottle of whiskey that I'd had as a Christmas present in the back, in the trunk. So I looked at a payphone. I wanted to call home. I didn't want to get in the car with him. And my instincts were, nobody's going to come and get me. They're not going to drive all this way. If I can just get home, I'll never see him again, and that'll be the end of it. So I got in. And I know from the ocean life, sun rises in the east, sets in the west. And if we wanted to go back north, we had to turn around. He sped off going more south and then into the sun, what was left of the sun, into the west. And I knew we were getting further and further away from home. He was speeding, he was driving erratically. And I found out later he was a diagnosed schizophrenic who was on lithium, had been on lithium, but had stopped taking it. So that combined with the alcohol just really gave him an otherworldly personality. So he turned the radio up really, really loud, and I turned it down, and I said, look, we kind of have to concentrate. I said, there might be a road back home. And that was when he hit me for the first time. He backhanded me, and he had a big paw. For a surfer guy, he was not your typical lanky guy. He stood out in so many different ways from our usual crew. He was big, he had blonde hair, the blue eyes, but he was just like a beefy kind of a guy, which you wouldn't particularly think would be a surfer. So when he hit me, I had been raped of my virginity at 14, and the guy had covered my mouth, so I was kind of used to being in a scary situation, but I had never been physically assaulted before. So this split my lip, and the blood ran down my shirt. It was hot and it was wet, And I said to myself, I said, don't say anything else. Let's just see, keep your eyes on the road. Let's see if we can get this car turned around and him calm down enough to get me home. We were stopped by a police officer and I asked directions. I said, we're just trying to get home. And the officer said, it's the next little turn right there. We'll get you back on the parkway. So I said, thanks so much. I didn't say anything. He didn't say anything about my lip or the fact that Tom had been drinking. Again, I just wanted to get the night over with. But again, as soon as the cop pulled away, he went further south and into the woods. We took a right turn into a cul-de-sac, and I didn't realize he was looking for a place to kill me. And we pulled into the cul-de-sac, and the first miracle happened. There were all these surfer guys were construction. They did construction during the winter, and there was a construction crew in this remote area working on a house on Christmas Eve. All the surfers, they did construction on when there were no waves. So I knew what the crew was doing. I just knew that they should not really have been out on Christmas Eve day. It's freezing, it's cold, it's dark. They had the floodlights. Homeowners are going to wait until the holidays are over. There wasn't an emergency situation. So to see a crew with their trucks, with their lights and their hammers, working hard on Christmas Eve just didn't really quite add up. So that was the first place he'd pulled over to try to kill me, and he pulled out. And I kept thinking, okay, if we can just head north, I'll be fine. And that never happened. There was a road blockage sign that said, road is under construction, do not go any further. It was a sawhorse. And he went around it and he drove as fast as he could, and he stopped short on the side of the road. And I had had a dream 2 nights prior, and the message was lock the door. And I had locked the door of my apartment, and I thought, that's a funny message. The door is locked, but the dream meant the car door. So he jammed it into park and got out and ran around the front of the car, and I could see the headlights on his jeans. And I what is going on? Is he going to the bathroom? I didn't know what he was going to do, but he ended up flinging the car door open on my side, coming in, kneeling on my stomach, and he hit me so many times. I just saw a little blue light after every hit, and I said to myself, if I can keep my eyes open after every hit, I know I'm still alive. I'm still breathing. And as long as I see that light, open my eyes after it, I said, I'll be okay. And the light was from the impact. And he wasn't satisfied the fact that I was still opening my eyes. And he grabbed half of the hair on my head and twisted my trachea. I heard it crack. I heard it turn on itself. And he said, I'm going to kill you and throw you in the ravine. And I was using a little bit of psychology. I said, no. I said, whatever I can do to help you. You want to get home, you want to take the car. It didn't matter. And it was on one of those blows that I came out of my body, and I saw the scene from across the road. And I was perfectly at peace. I was undisturbed. I was like watching what was happening. And I saw my body on the side of the road, and he was standing over it, and I had a red coat on him. My arm was at a funny angle, and my face was turned away from the road, and I was dead. And I remember thinking I was okay where I was, and I just felt, I guess I was at peace in a very strange way. But my thoughts before that had been, I'm never going to see my mother again, and nobody's ever going to find my body. And when I was out of my body, it was truly not me. I realized that truly is just who we are on the outside, but there's a part of us that is untouchable and eternal and goes on forever and is perfectly perfect. And with that, I was brought back into my body, and 2 car lights came out of the distance at the other direction. And they also had gone around the road closed sign, but on the other side of this road. And there were 2 boys coming back from an AA meeting who wanted to find the darkest road they could find in town to see the lights, the stars. They thought maybe they could see the Star of Bethlehem. And it startled him enough to get off of me. And I ran out of the car and stood in the road, and I put my hands over my head. And I said, at least if they hit me, they'll know who I am eventually, and they'll find my body, and that'll be a better ending than being beaten to death. The car went around me, and he had knocked off my glasses, so I saw the red taillights, so I started to run, and then I could hear Tom running after me as I was running after the car. And eventually they pulled over, and I slammed on the car window, I said, let me in, let me in. And the passenger did. And I jumped on his lap and they closed the door. And I thought, oh my God, now I'm in more trouble because now there's two guys here. They had leather jackets, piercings, there were metal gadgets in the car. I was scared and they were not saying very much. And I said to myself, as soon as I get a chance, I'm going to open up the car door again and I'm going to jump out. And just as I was about to do that, I saw a cross hanging from the rearview mirror, and it seemed to be lighting up in the dark. And the one of them said to the other one, "Are you going to tell her who we are?" And the passenger, the guy I was sitting on, he said, "We're Earth Angels. We've done this before, and you're going to go on to do this for someone else." So eventually Tom was arrested by the Fort Dix police, and I was called back after getting home to sign a statement. So I never made it home for church. I almost never made it home alive. And then when I did get home, it was 4:00 Christmas morning. And I was a translator in New York City, and I lived in Japan and LA. And after this experience, I went to school to become a nurse. And I work now with very, very, very poor children, offering health care not only to them, but to their families and to the community. And I couldn't be happier with the way my life has turned out since then.